Hey everybody, Conscious Medium Brandon Russ. Thanks for joining me on this very special stream of consciousness as we take a look at an update of Saturn and Pisces. And I'm going to be focused in on one state alone, and that's Tennessee. Why would I bring up Tennessee? Well, in Saturn and Pisces, up is down and down is up. It is a time of great social change. Is it for positive or is it for negative? There was a school shooting in Tennessee, and the legislature stood up. And when other people in the legislature, people that had money interests and slight bigotry, decided to step in and begin to oust people, I'm about to show you astrologically how Justin Jones may in fact be Martin Luther King's dream in motion. I'm about to show you the astrology of a backfired move by angry people. Stay tuned for this one, guys. You're not going to want to miss it. Saturn in Pisces, the social revolution. Hey everybody, true story, I do watch my opening every single time I play it. Sorry. And yes, I know that there's gentlemen involved with that, and I have 100 more I could have added in. And there are many women I could add into that. Those are the ones I found in clip art. Anyways, Saturn and Pisces, let's talk about this as an astrological event right now. Now, Saturn is the great equalizer, the judgment, the balance, the stubborn nature, the Capricorn, the solid energy, the justice, if you will. Pisces is the ruler of understanding the creative, the kind of, hey, let's kind of go with the flow, let's kind of mix this up. As you can well imagine, Saturn and Pisces don't really get along. That's why throughout history there have been great social changes. If you want a little bit of a recap of that, go ahead and take a look at some of my other videos. I'll post that one there at the end of this for Saturn and Pisces as a recap in terms of world history. But I want to focus in on history in the making right now. I want to talk about Dr. Martin Luther King for a minute. Of course, he was a social activist for almost a decade before he was gunned down in none other than Memphis, Tennessee. Please pay attention. There's a theme. I'm going to drive it home. What a lot of people don't know, or at least don't sit with our history books, is that when Martin Luther King went to Memphis, he was actually standing up for the rights of 2 sanitation workers. Now you're like, okay, why does this have to do with 2 sanitation workers? Well, they lost their lives because they weren't allowed to go in the cab while they were driving around and picking up garbage. In a torrential downpour, they sought shelter in the back of the truck, and then it malfunctioned, and they were brought in and crushed to death. When Martin Luther King took to Memphis, he basically said, when is it my turn? Am I next? Still resonating with the voice that he sang from the Birmingham jail cell, where he basically wrote his epitaph to say, we are all meant to be equal and not to be the oppressor when we are no longer oppressed. And I would be remiss if I didn't say this as the blue-eyed white guy in the room. If it wasn't for you too, I might not have ever researched Martin Luther King. That's the reality. It wasn't taught in schools. It was kind of an afterthought. It was Jim Crow laws, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, see you later, bye. And that was Tuesday in social studies. We sort of suck in our education system, just to let you know. But in a deeper dive, you realize that he was a natural oppressor to those that were being oppressed. And let me explain. He would stand up for people, but he would also hold them accountable. One of the first things that he said when he arrived to Memphis and he sat with the family, he asked them, why do you think they didn't say anything? He didn't assume anything. He actually asked a very intelligent question. And he got the perspective that he needed. One of the gentlemen said, oh, he would never say anything. He's also from the Deep South, and guess what? He wouldn't say boo to anyone. He wouldn't say, he wouldn't crush a bug. He wouldn't hurt a soul. He was meek and mild, and that's just the way he was. Now, the other person that was crushed in that, their family said, oh yeah, he said something over and over again. And he said, aha. I found that both of these people needed to have someone stand up for them. So he asked, am I next? By the way, speaking of am I next, let's bring in someone that you would have had no idea who the hell they were. And let's be brutally honest, 99.8% of United States Americans would not know who Justin Jones was if he wasn't ousted in a power move by, let's call it what it is, white legislatures that wanted to remove him because he had stood up in the wake of a gun shooting, a senseless gun shooting. And by the way, what he was standing up for was the idea that maybe legislature should take responsibility here and begin to enact laws where guns are not proliferated. There were 3 people that were up for censure that day. 2 black men were removed, 1 white woman was spared, and she made no bones about it and said, let's be honest, I'm the white one. We're talking 2023, everybody. Martin Luther King's plight when he was gunned down was 1968. Through 1956 to 1968, he spoke prolifically about what equality really should be. And by the way, Martin Luther King was not looking to take control. He was not looking for power. He was looking for actual equality. We do not want to become the oppressor when we are no longer oppressed. We want to lead as we are capable of. Justin Jones stood up for those rights of the kids that were gunned down. Who's next? Am I next? Justin Jones was not only eloquent in his speech, he was not divisive, he was not hateful, and if you didn't get chills listening to what he had to say, it was not only eerily reminiscent, it was damn near exact the words that Martin Luther King would have echoed today. So what does a kid that's born in Oakland, California, that moved to Memphis, Tennessee, have in common with the civil rights activist who was born in, I believe, Montgomery, Alabama, and then assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee? Notice how many times I'm saying Memphis, Tennessee, everybody. Also notice that I'm about to show you in the charts the consistency of this is Martin Luther King's legacy now. Could have knocked me over a feather when I saw this in the middle of the night. First of all, let's take a look at Martin Luther King's assassination. This, of course, was in Memphis, Tennessee, but I want to point out where Saturn was. Saturn was sitting in Aries. It was sitting in the 12th house, the house of the undoing, the house of the unbecoming. You had Jupiter sitting in the 5th house, in Leo in a very natural sense. So he was robust. He was definitely out there speaking of things that should not have been spoken of. Right? He also was naturally born with the idea of rebellion with anyone. He was a tough partner. And by the way, Martin Luther King was not perfect. Let's be honest. He's got things in his past where it's kind of like, did you just write a Scott King like that? Did you really just... He was evolving himself. Let's just take that as face value. Saturn actually talks a lot about his demise. When you look at Saturn in his natal chart here in the 8th house in Sagittarius, it has formed a square with where Saturn was in the 12th house. So 2 forces, one in the house of death and one in the house of the unpredictable, fire sign on fire sign. In a nutshell, that's how Martin Luther King came to his demise. But what I want to take a look at, and again, I might be going a little bit out of order here. This is why I need a producer, everybody. Actually, I'm going to save this one for last. I want to take a look at one of the famous times that Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King, was in jail is in St. Augustine. He was standing up for the rights of citizens to be able to actually sit in a, quote, all-white restaurant. Right? So he was standing up for them, and he was jailed for it. Justin Jones was ousted, quasi-jailed, for what he did. And I'm taking a look at these dates, and by the way, it is not lost on me, or anybody else that's paid attention to this, that he was ousted on the anniversary 2 days after the assassination of Martin Luther King in Memphis, Tennessee. Sorry, Tennessee. Little shout out to some Talk Soup. Like 5 of you got that. So Martin Luther King being arrested in St. Augustine, the important thing that I want to point out here is taking a look at the 6th house. And as a matter of fact, I'm really going to blow this out a little bit. Notice how in the 6th house, Saturn near lines up. Again, he could have knocked me over with a feather on this. Now, these are 2 event days. Just events. They're not people. In this moment, we have the same type of energy sitting in the 6th house. The house of what's near you. The house of your overall health. And then you have the social calling card of Saturn in Pisces. And guess what? They line up perfectly. Near perfect. Almost right on top of each other. By the way, that was the day that he protested. Oh, 2 days before he protested. That was the day Martin Luther King passed. Go figure. When you begin to recognize this pattern, you can't help but notice that maybe the people involved had no idea how much of an impact Justin Jones could have with his words. Again, eloquent, well-spoken, and none of you freaking heard about him until this crap happened. Martin Luther King chose him. From the grave, from the other side, he said, this guy's got it. This guy understands it. Born to a Philippine mother, an African-American father, and moved across country for better chances out of the muck and mold of downtown Oakland. Sorry, Oakland. Clean up your act and I won't have to say it. And now he speaks nothing but truth and peace. And listen, go ahead and dig up all you want on Justin Jones. I'm sure he's got a couple of hiccups. But if you listen to that speech, that's a man that's figured it out. I hope he continues that way. That's the kind of role model we need in this country. And by the way, I made my boys listen to what he had to say. And he's like, who's that? And I said, he's a friend of mine. Okay, I'll listen. They listened to the whole thing. Now, we're going to finish strong here, everybody. We're going to actually take a look at Martin Luther King and Justin Jones. Now, Justin Jones does not have a published time of birth, but this is how we get away with it because it's kind of awesome. When you do this synastry style charts, you're able to put the emphasis on the inside wheel, right? The outside wheel kind of follows along. And yes, I'm using the Placidus. I'm not using whole charts, right? But they tend to do that when you don't have the actual time of birth. But I want to point out something here that, again, I'm telling you, Dr. Martin Luther King chose Justin Jones to be a mouthpiece in this moment. Whether he will be forever, I don't know. But as you line up the charts, now on the inside is Dr. King's astrology, right? His 8th house showing Saturn in Sagittarius. Dicey proposition depending upon where it is. But oh, look at this. He is a near square to Justin Jones. And by the way, Justin Jones, Saturn, his natal placement, you guessed it, Saturn in Pisces. He is meant to be a catalyst for change. Oh, and sitting in the 11th house against Martin Luther King's chart, guess what? He is all about the social change. I am telling you. I talk to dead people. I'm telling you. Dr. King chose Justin Jones for this moment. I'm not negating the other people that were in trouble. I'm not negating the other people that stood up. And I'm certainly not negating the issue of the fact that we need actual fucking gun control in this country. Yes, it's mental health. But how about you don't hand it to them and say, let's find out. The types of things that Dr. King would really appreciate. Dr. King being a Capricorn, Sun Capricorn, guess what? And a Taurus rising, he's kind of a hard ass. That combo platter is definitely a hard ass. But guess where he's got a sweet spot for? He's a Pisces moon. He knows how to love. Sometimes a little too much if you like the rumors. But you also look at how Justin is built. He's got a Leo moon. Realistically, we can't necessarily guess the rising, but we will here in the fact that he's actually approaching it in the exact opposite way. When you line this up, he's a Scorpio rising, the exact opposite of Taurus. Oh, and his sun is Virgo, so equal hard ass, but that of service. Virgos are hard asses, but about service to others. Capricorns are about, like, you're going to spend money where? And with the Taurus rising, he's like, what? There's no practicality to this whatsoever. Dr. King was the perfect person to push the envelope with us. Justin Jones is the perfect person to carry it on. If you don't believe me, take a look at the astrology. Justin Jones is going to be a peacemaker. How do I know that? Jupiter in Sagittarius. He's going to go big and go home. He wants to change the world. Pluto in Scorpio, he's about to uncover things left and right. And it sits in Dr. King's 7th house, which means he can carry this on and have the partnerships that maybe Dr. King couldn't. And by the way, this isn't a flaw in Dr. King. This is more of a flaw of the time. Astrology changes every day. Time and space change every day. Justin Jones is the right person right now to be able to take these reins and push the envelope. You need some more information on this? How about changing the social mindset? How about him having Uranus and Neptune in conjunct in Capricorn over Dr. Martin Luther King's son? I don't want to call him MLK. I don't like that. He deserves to have his words said, not his initials. Dr. King chose him because he understands the rebellion and the new way of looking at things. Here in the 9th house, this is a core base belief, everybody. Dr. King was driven by a core base belief. That's why he was a Capricorn. That's why he was such a hard ass. And then for Uranus and Neptune to be in conjunct over his sun when compared in your charts, are you freaking kidding me? Astrologers are sitting here going, holy shit, he's nailing this. People that generally kind of like, I don't really know that, but boy, that's cool. Okay. The reason why I look at history so much when it comes to astrology is it actually tells the story. Now, is Justin Jones a flash in the pan? That's actually what I thought. That's actually what I started with. I shouldn't say I thought it. I started there. How much of an impact will Justin Jones have? Well, guess what? The more that I research this, the more that I realize in his charts how prolific he's going to be. Take a look at the 5th house. Now, Dr. King was a Neptune in the 5th house in Virgo. But guess where all the Virgo placements are for Justin? It's his sun. It's Venus. It's Mercury. It's even his Chiron. He is going to bring healing in the most nurturing way. When we talk about the rise of feminine energy, this is what we're talking about, everybody. This Virgo energy, where once upon a time, Dr. King had to be the hard ass, had to be the And by the way, Capricorn actually is the mother. So there's still feminine divine energy here. But in Justin Jones, and by the way, it has nothing to do with sexuality. Get that crap off my comments. What this means is that he's able to understand the nurture and say, fuck you, we have to do it this way. We've tried your way. This dude was born in 95. In 95, I had already jumped off of Johnny Finnegan's roof in nothing but my underwear. Or my Viking. By the way, thank you for buying the book. I had already made monumental mistakes in my life. This kid is literally sitting here in his Saturn return in the next year and a half. And he's like, this is the world I want to live in. And guess what? You're all coming with me or I don't know you. Bam. Bam. It's incredible to me. It is just simply incredible to me how much Justin Jones is the perfect person to carry on a legacy. Did that legacy lie dormant? No. There were a lot of followers. But if you listen to Justin Jones' speech, it is so becoming of a leader. People talk about actions and mistakes and that sort of thing. And by the way, we're still in the land of cancellation. We can't wait to point out everybody's flaws, myself included. I've done it. And I've had it done to me. But people don't see when I help somebody that's homeless. People don't see when there's somebody struggling and I help them. So the criticisms become amplified because I don't want to look at the good. We're conditioned to look at the bad. Justin Jones has a past. It hasn't come out yet. It will. He was born in Oakland. His mother moved him for a reason. And now he's in the legislature. Did he lie about having parents in 9/11? Doesn't sound like it. Did he lie about like doing fundraisers and never turning over the money? That doesn't appear to be that way. But somebody will dig up something. There'll be some ex-person that'll say horrible things because they have 15 minutes of fame and they needed the $2,000 for the interview. That'll happen. It'll absolutely happen. When that happens, I want you to focus in on this right here. Dr. Martin Luther King hand-selected Justin Jones based on the astrology. We live in a world that's conditioned to hate everybody. And that man was pure love in that moment. I can't say enough good things about him for reasons. I'm going on intuition here, guys. When I saw this face, I went, oh yeah. I had to overcome biases, not because my parents taught me certain things, but there were institutional things where things just weren't accepted. I didn't see things in my neighborhood that I could have seen, that I didn't see till I started traveling the world. And I went, oh, wow, oh, geez. And I began to recognize that, like, I was attracted to the curiosity of understanding who they were. And this isn't like a like a blue-eyed guilt thing or any of that other crap. It's just my own realization. And before I went through all of these changes with my foot, I had actually put out to the universe, I'm like, I really don't know any Muslims. Like, there was one kid in high school and, and he was always kind of a punchline for different reasons. And, the things that kids say to each other when they're mean and whatever. But he always took it in stride. And I always kind of looked up to him for that. He's like, he was owning his uniqueness is how I talked about it. And I said out to the universe, I'm like, I really don't know any Muslim people. I need to get to know a Muslim. I need to understand what they know. And then I go through all of this stuff with my foot. And I end up getting handed a podiatrist who was Muslim and practicing and very clear with what his belief systems were. And he would look at my toes and my feet and blah, 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 and whatever. And, we're going to do this and this and blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then he's like, so what else do you do? And I go, well, I study world religions. And he says, oh, what would you like to know? You probably don't get an opportunity to speak to a Muslim. I'm sorry to tell the next 10 people behind me, I was the reason why they were all late that day, because we would talk for 20, 50 minutes just about his beliefs and how he went about things and his prayer schedules. Like, I just didn't understand any of it. But I actually asked the questions instead of just went down the ignorant path of like, what's the towel doing on your head? Is that just what you use every day? Stupid shit. Why the beard? Can't you trim it? I was no longer perpetuated by fear when I started to ask the questions. I want my kids to ask questions. I want Tennessee to start to ask questions. I want Memphis to realize what a gift they have in a leader like him. Because he's trying to understand this. He's not trying to ridicule it. And if that isn't a page out of Martin Luther King's book, if that isn't an influence beyond his days, I'm here to tell you, this man is going to go places. This man is going to be a mouthpiece, and this man will expand our consciousness. I know when you tuned in today, you didn't expect this. Quite frankly, when I started looking at the charts, sometimes I look at 1,000 charts a week. This one was compelling because I saw the shadows of Martin Luther King in this conversation. I saw Justin Jones become in that speech. And like I said, 1% of us barely even knew who this guy was 2 weeks ago. And now the world is going to know him as a peace leader. I'm going to give my heart tap out to the shooting victims of Memphis as well as Kentucky. It is a regional issue now. I'm going to give you the heart taps so you remember that people love and care for one another. And my heart tap to Justin, I see you. That light worker bringing that you're doing right now, that light you bring to work every day, you need to have it. And whenever you forget about it, watch a video like this. I am giving you the heart tap, but it's not one that Dr. Martin Luther King hasn't given you already. You got to keep going. You're one of us, and you're going to do it. All right, guys. Thanks again for tuning in. Keep going.